A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. One day, Jesus was standing by Lake Gennesaret, and the crowd pressed in on him to hear the word of God. He saw two boats moored by the side of the lake. The fishers had disembarked and were washing their nets. Jesus stepped into one of the boats, the one belonging to Simon, and asked him to pull out a short distance from the shore. And then, remaining seated, he continued to teach the crowds from the boat. When he had finished speaking, he said to Simon, "Pull out into deep water and lower your nets for a catch." Simon answered, "Rabbi, we have been working hard all night long and have caught nothing. But if you say so, I will lower the nets." Upon doing so, they caught such a great number of fish that their nets were all at a breaking point. They signaled to their mates in the other boat to come and help them. And together they filled the two boats until they both nearly sank. After Simon saw what happened, he was filled with awe and fell down before Jesus, saying, "Leave me, Rabbi, for I am a sinner." For Simon and his shipmates were astonished at the size of the catch they had made, as were James and John, Zebedee's sons, who were Simon's partners. Jesus said to Simon, "Do not be afraid. From now on, you will fish among humankind." And when they brought their boats to shore, they left everything and they followed Jesus. The good news of salvation. Today's readings are crucial for understanding the good news of the Christ event. We begin with Isaiah's vision of God's throne room that results in Isaiah's vision of that room that results in his call to be God's spokesperson. Then we move to the psalmist's unwavering faith and who protects him, even when he speaks truth to power. This leads to Luke's narration of the call of the first disciples and Paul's primal creed of the good news. Jesus in Luke's gospel is teaching by the sea, as we just heard, revealing the word of God. In the midst of manifesting God's prophetic activity, Jesus encounters those who will be his disciples. Simon Peter, James, and John all enter into relationship with Jesus based on his word and his deeds. They eventually become prophets and apostles. Luke is the only evangelist who described Jesus' teaching as the word of God. We are all very familiar with hearing the term through our liturgy. In fact, we say that Jesus, that the Word was with the Creator in the beginning. The teaching was seed planted among the people who were uniquely blessed when they received it. The seaside setting where Jesus began teaching the Word of God was independent of traditional prayer spaces or any type of preferred community. In this setting, perhaps, it was much easier to invite the fishermen to abandon the water for a different life, a life of walking from town to town and through the countryside. That invitation is the centerpiece of today's liturgy. Jesus finished his preaching by telling the boatmen to put out for a catch. Trusting Jesus, Simon did so and came up with bursting nets. Seeing that, Peter fell to his knees. Peter's awe at Jesus and his recognition of his own inadequacies gave Jesus the opening necessary to invite Peter to more. Like Peter, Isaiah says, "Woe to me, I am a person of unclean lips." And like Peter's moment of inadequacy, Isaiah's admission was enough to put him to wholeness. Tonight's readings and Bible stories themselves as a whole are filled with stories of people encountering God, regardless whether they get everything right or everything wrong, according to Richard Rohr. God is manifest in the ordinary and in the concrete incarnations of life. God does not hold out for the pure, the spiritual, the right idea, or the ideal anything. The God of the Bible would much rather be in relationship than merely be right in solitude. This is why Jesus stands religion on its head. Our temptation now and always is to trust in our faith tradition instead of trusting in God. Rather than actually trusting God through our own actual real life encounters. What I mean by that is something like when Pope Francis, for example, says something pastorally and says something about let's say the mercy of the Christian message, rather than expressing teachings such as they might exist in the Catechism of the Catholic Church. When we are open to actual encounters with the living God, we are open to the gift of ongoing incarnations. The biblical revelation is saying that we are already spiritual beings. We just don't know it yet. The story, like tonight's reading, tries to let us in on the secret by revealing God in the ordinary. The principle of the incarnation proclaims that matter and spirit have never been separate. Jesus came to tell us these seemingly different worlds are and always have been one. Now let's move on to a few more examples that we can learn from our friend and mentor and founder, Jesuit John McNeill. And in the words of recent actions of our Jesuit Pope Francis, and how these are and can affect us as LGBTQ Catholics, our partners and our friends. The first is synodality. John McNeill would often tell me and tell many people and talk about this in his retreats, that that what we needed was another church council in the future that would solidify the teachings of Vatican II and bring it solidly to local churches. And we can see that Pope Francis has made synodality a part of his future vision for the church. In recent weeks, both the Archbishops of Munich, Cardinal Reinhard Marx, and of Berlin, Archbishop Heiner Koch, have been very outspoken about the need for change in the church's teachings on LGBT relationships, married and celibate clergy, and the women diaconate. Also, the Jesuit Cardinal of the European Union, Jean-Claude Hollerich of Luxembourg, has said the same thing. The second thing I want to mention from John McNeill is how we can further develop our love for the divine, according to John's message in his book, Freedom, Glorious Freedom. When John talks about developing a relationship with the divine, he always states that God initiates that affair, that relationship. God is the initiator. Like Jesus was the initiator of the relationship with the apostles that he called. So this happens in three ways. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you an example of each of these from John's book, Freedom, Glorious Freedom. What John talks about is that if we fall in love with someone, God is really not far away. God cruises us throughout our life and flirts with us in very, very ordinary ways. John encourages us to write love letters as prayers to the divine. And I'm going to just read one or two examples of such things, and maybe we would be encouraged to do something similar. So John says, make God your primary love object. Write love letters and poems to God. Listen to these following love poems written by a friend of his. O many named beloved, listen to my praise, various as the seasons, different as the days. All my treasons cease when I see your face. The silence is vast, I am still and wander, keeping you in mind. There is never enough time to know another. And John also says, invite God into a dance. When I was a young man, God would let me take the lead, but now that I'm older, God takes the lead. My heart is ready, God, my heart is ready. I will sing and make music for you. Awake, my glory, awake, that I may awake the dawn. Thank you.